everybody, it's Mrs. Francisco here. I hope everyone is doing okay, looking after yourselves, keeping safe and doing plenty of work, of course. We're going to be looking at lighting in photography. The use of light and shadows is one of the most important things in photography and something that you have to use to your advantage to make the most of your photos. So we're going to look at light in particular today, focus on that, and then in future lessons we're going to look at how you can manipulate, change light to make the most of your photos, to get the best out of your photos, okay? So what we're going to look at is the fact that there are, and as you will know from your science lessons, there are different types of light, okay? So there's natural light and there's man-made light. So natural light is something that is just there, such as the sun, okay? You don't have to do anything to the sun. The sun appears every day on a morning until nighttime, and then it goes. You don't have to do anything. You don't turn it on, you don't turn it off. It's just there. There's also different creatures around the world, such as this little guy, this little insect, who's creates its own light coming from his bum, okay? And he creates light. And then obviously there's the stars. And then there's man-made light, okay? So man-made is something that obviously man has created to create light for us, in particular when there's an absence of natural light. So for example, in the middle, we've got a table lamp, or we've got a torch, or we've got the TV, okay? We don't necessarily use the TV as a source of light, but it creates light. And you need to be aware of these things when you are making your photos. What kind of light is there? Is it natural? Is it man-made? Does natural mean it's less harsh? Okay, does man-made mean you can turn it off? Is it possible? Okay, so you'll be making these decisions all the time. And you can also have a think about what other types of natural and man-made lights there are. So, we also have, when we think about lighting, there are two types of lighting. So there's harsh lighting and soft lighting, okay? One is the opposite of the other. So what is harsh lighting? As you can read here, it says, created when a light source is smaller than the subject, okay? So if you had your torch on your phone and you held it up to your face, it looks more harsh than the sun when the sun is shining on your face, okay? It looks more artificial. And for that reason, it can create very dramatic shadows, okay? You always have shadows on your face, but according to the light source, and whether it's close or far from the subject or from your face, as to how dramatic those shadows can be. And as it says, there's a large difference between the shadows and the light on your face. And then there's soft lighting, okay? So it's created when the light source is bigger, helping to illuminate the subject. So as I talked about the torch, which has got quite harsh lighting, if you use soft lighting, we think about the sun. The sun is so big, there's not one specific light or ray or beam of sun. It's all encompassing. It covers your whole body. And for that reason, it creates softer shadows. They're not as dramatic. And if the light source is big enough, there might not be any shadows, okay? You might not be able to see them, depending on where the light source is and how far away it is from you. And then softer light tends to wrap around the subject rather than beam on it completely. So if you think about the sun versus a torch, if you held a torch up to someone's face, it would just be one strong beam on the face, whereas the sun would envelop the person's face or body. So here we go. If we look at the two different pictures, we can see on the left hand side there is harsh lighting You can see she has harsher, more dramatic shadows, not just behind her, but on her face. Here you can see she's got a shadow here on the side of her face. The shadows under her eyes are a lot darker and underneath her chin. Whereas on the right-hand side, it's softer. You can see that because as well, if you look at her hair on this side, you can see the light shining off her hair. Whereas on this side, there's nothing like that. There's no shininess, okay? There's nothing bouncing off her face. There are less shadows around her face, under her chin. Okay, so there you can see the difference between the two different types of lighting. And again, there are no shadows behind her. Okay, we have to think about light direction as well, because a very good photographer will get into their position, know where they want to take their photo, but they'll be very aware of what direction the light is shining. And they might be able to do things to manipulate that light to get the best photo possible, which is what we'll move on to in future lessons. So if you think about your subject in the middle, okay, and if the person's sitting in the middle and there's a light behind them shining over their shoulder, we would say it's backlighting, it's got backlighting. If you have the subject in the middle and the light is shining from one side or the other, really straightforward, it's called side lighting. And then if you have if you're taking a photo of something and the light is shining directly onto the front of that subject, it's called front lighting. So I'm going to show you some pictures and I want you to decide where is the light, what is the light direction and how do you know? So here we go. What is the light direction? Excellent. So you would say the light is shining from the right-hand side. It's a side lighting. And you know because of where the shadow is. So the shadow is always after the subject, behind the subject. And you can see here, this side of the apple is illuminated. Next one. Where is the lighting from? Which direction? Great. So it's coming from above. And you can see there's the beam of light on the top. And you can see that it has created a shadow around the apple. What about this one? Which direction is the light shining from? Excellent. So it's not directly on the apple, it's slightly to the right-hand side, and you can see because here's the light and the shadow's slightly off to the left-hand side because that's the apple is blocking that light, and light travels in a straight line. Here you can see that the light, where before the light was shining directly onto the apple, here the light is behind the apple and it's like a backlighting. And that is why the shadow is standing in front of the subject, okay, from where you're taking your photo. Finally, what about this one? Good, straight on. From below as well, it's slightly below, and you know that because the shadow is much bigger than the apple, okay? And if I showed you these two photos, in which photo is the light source closer to the subject? If you were holding the torch and you were taking these photos, in which one would you be closer to the apple? Good, you would be closer to the apple on the one on the right-hand side because the shadow is smaller. Excellent. Right, so I hope that's useful, thinking about light direction and the kind of things that can be created with natural or man-made light, the different types of shadows. So shadows aren't always a bad thing. You'll see in the next couple of videos that some photographers love to use shadows and they are a deliberate choice. But what I want you to do is have a looking at how light direction changes the shadow, how it changes the photo you're taking, what effect it has. So I want you to find something in your house to photograph. I used an apple. You could use a mug. You could use a bottle. If you use something opaque, that's really helpful. Use a torch. Practice changing the direction of light and seeing what happens to the shadows which are created. All right, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Take care. Bye.